All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to hour number 3 of the Steve Malzberg Show. And sit back and enjoy this, because for the next 2 segments we have live in studio Joel Rosenberg, and of course multiple times a New York Times best-selling author, and he's got a great new one out. It's called The Third Target. And we have it up there on the big screen. There it is, The Third Target. Welcome, sir. Great
good
to see you.
Steve. How are you?
It's always great to talk to you, and it's a pleasure to have you in studio.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
And you know, I said to you off the air, so I'll say it on the air, and I'm not blowing smoke by any means. You're such an important voice, and you're such an important friend of Israel. And so many people are too selective in my community, in the Jewish community, as to who their friends are, and so. But every friend of Israel, I think, is very important, especially at this time. What do you see happening? Before we get to your book, and we're going to have plenty of time to do that, what do you see happening with the Middle East, with ISIS, with Israel, with the pending agreement that Obama is sure to sign with Iran? Where are we headed?
Steve, I think that 2015 could be one of the most dangerous years in the Middle East. You know, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, whether we're Jewish, evangelicals, whatever, but look at what's emerging. You've got genocidal conditions emerging in Syria, with more than 200,000 dead. Some experts are now saying it could be 280,000 dead at this point. 76,000 killed just in 2014, the highest number in the entire Civil War. And that's largely due to the Islamic State. Then you've got Iraq, where you had more than 15,000 murdered in 2014. And you've got ISIS really moving systematically through towns and villages, slaughtering or enslaving. In some cases with the little girls, sex slavery, whole towns, villages, Muslims, Christians. What they're coming after is the United States and Israel. But they're also coming after other Arab countries. They're trying to bring down the governments of 2. So that's just ISIS, okay? And Israel just captured an ISIS cell in the West Bank just a few days ago. Then there's Iran, which is actually the larger strategic threat. None of the negotiations seem to be serious, I mean, in my view, because Iran, they want to build the bomb, and they're trying to drag out these negotiations as long as possible. And we've got 2 years more of President Obama, who does not seem to be willing to be decisive on either issue, neutralizing the Iranian nuclear threat or neutralizing ISIS. So despite the new Congress being, in the hands of the Republicans, Obama still controls the reins of foreign policy.
As pro-Israel as the Congress is, it's still Obama when push comes to shove.
That's right.
And you talk about, first of all, I think very important, the ISIS cell in the West Bank. Did you say the West Bank, or was it?
It was in Hebron, actually,
yeah.
right.
So talk about the threat that ISIS poses to Israel, because we don't normally talk about or hear about that.
Right. Well, ISIS is, of course, trying to build an Islamic State, a caliphate, right? And I've written about these in my books, but it's not fiction. This is reality. They're trying to get Syria. They're trying to get Iraq. But eventually, what do they want? They want Jerusalem. Any radical Islamic leader, jihadist, wants to control Jerusalem. And that's where they're heading. And so they're going to come from every direction. What's stunning is the complacency of President Obama and the Obama team. The president, a year ago in January, told the New Yorker, ISIS is a JV team.
Right.
And you thought, wow, I was in the middle of writing this novel, The Third Target, and I'm thinking, JV? I mean, these people are beheading people. They're crucifying people. But at that point, you could still make a case that it wasn't as big a story as by summer of 2014, where ISIS took over 45% of Iraq.
Yeah.
So, but by August, President Obama was launching airstrikes and saying we are facing genocidal conditions, but it's all half measures. And you've got General Jack Keane and others saying, if you're going to do a serious military strike and to decimate ISIS, you wouldn't be running it this way.
Oh, no. He's going against his military advisors.
But Israel is the ultimate. I think the United States is the ultimate target,
right.
But Israel is the near-term target.
Yeah. Do you think Obama cares? I mean, do you think, let me phrase it this way, does Obama dislike Israel? Does Obama favor the Muslim Brotherhood over Israel, perhaps?
There's no question that the relationship between Israel and the United States under President Obama has worsened. Now, but it's complicated, and so President Obama's trying to divide Jerusalem. President Obama wants to roll Israel back to the pre-1967 borders, which were not defensible. And the policy of the United States through every generation has been defensible borders.
Right.
That being said, in a strange twist of fate, the president does seem to be supporting the Iron Dome rocket defense program and others. So it's a complicated mix, and I'm not sure I can fully discern his objective, which means that Israelis are very nervous that the president does not have the back of Israel.
And when we come back, we'll talk quickly about the Israeli elections and what role Obama might be playing in that already. And also the book, The Third Target. It's straight ahead. More with Joel Rosenberg. Don't go away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Joel Rosenberg, a New York Times best-selling author, and his latest, The Third Target, the Israeli elections. I know I'm not supposed to hold up books, but I want to hold this book up. All right, I'm going to get to this in a second, but we ended on the Israeli elections. You know, there was a story, and you could probably know more about this than I do, that Netanyahu, some irregularity in Likud or whatever. Do you think Obama is working in any way possible behind the scenes to, if he can, sabotage the re-election of Netanyahu? And what's the popular sentiment in Israel right now?
I would say absolutely to that first question, but it's behind the scenes and it's quiet. Meaning, you know, you look at this Palestinian resolution at the United Nations Security Council. This is tailor-made by the President of the United States. I mean, not literally, but effectively, you know, divide Jerusalem, roll Israel back to the 67 borders, force Israel to make a deal or else. But why didn't the United States back it? The reason they didn't back it, in my view, is because it would, right now, at this timing, it would help Netanyahu. So I think the United States came out against the resolution. They're waiting. They're hoping that Netanyahu will lose and lose big. It's not possible that he would lose big, but it is possible for the first time that I remember in a while that he could lose control of Israel. He could lose the leadership.
To a labor?
To a left wing,
Based on what? I mean, look at what Israel's under worse threat than ever. What, to give concessions to the Palestinians? Is that the popular sentiment?
No, the popular sentiment is that the media hates Netanyahu, the left wing hates Netanyahu, and even some within the center-right are getting tired of his leadership. Partly those are personality and backroom, behind-the-scenes type inside politics, inside baseball.
Right.
But the reason Netanyahu will win, if he wins, is because the nation decides, listen, for whatever we think about him as a leader tactically, he's the only guy who can protect us right now. Yeah. And that's the case that he's making, and it's a good case because it's hard to picture any of these other leaders. And I've met many of them, not all of them. I can't currently picture them as defending Israel against Israel and ISIS.
Yeah, no, I couldn't imagine it. And Iran, you mean Iran and ISIS?
Iran and
ISIS.
No,
neither could I. All right. Your book, The Third Target. All of your novels are so, you can't put them down. They're thrillers, and they're page turners to me because they're based on what's going on in the world. So, and a lot of the times you read it and you say, oh my God, this could really happen, God forbid, in many cases. So talk about The Third Target.
Well, The Third Target is a novel based on the theory of a New York Times foreign correspondent. He hears a rumor that ISIS has captured chemical weapons in Syria. He asks his editor if he can go in and interview the commander of ISIS on the ground. The editor says no. He and his colleagues go in anyway, and all hell breaks loose. They determine, ISIS won't tell them if they have chemical weapons, but they threaten a genocidal attack. And the question becomes, with ISIS trying to bring down the Syrian government and the Iraqi government, what's the next target? What's the third target? And when I began writing the novel last year, no one had ever really heard of ISIS, not my publisher anyway. And they were like, maybe you should come up with a fictional terror group. And I said, no, this is coming. In the next 5 years or so, I think this is going to be a major issue. And I want to get out in front and help people imagine, what if we don't deal decisively with it? What if we treat it as a JV team? And now things have moved very, very dangerously, very fast. I think we're seeing genocidal conditions. But what if they get chemical weapons?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just a total nightmare. Do you see a scenario where Israel, in order to preempt and defend herself before push comes to shove, and Obama with a wonderful was it a Christmas message? I mean, it's the Christmas message you would have hoped you heard from Obama, where he talked about Christians and how they're welcome in Israel and how they're being abused in the Middle East and persecuted and killed. Do you
That
think
was Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah,
gave it.
Netanyahu,
Right,
yes.
right,
Do you think to help to save the Christians who are being slaughtered from ISIS and the other groups, and to save Israel or to protect Israel, there'd be some kind of preemptive action on the part of Israel against ISIS?
Absolutely not, except on a tactical
Why not?
basis.
Why not?
The reason because Netanyahu understands that the strategic threat to Israel and the West is Iran.
Right.
ISIS is a huge threat,
Right.
but there is an Arab, American, Western alliance
Against it.
trying to do
yeah.
something. So let the U.S. and the West and the Arab countries, Jordan, for example, do this. Israel has to keep its eye on the ball, and that is the Iranian nuclear threat.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to ask you how the whole New York Times say, and it's interesting because it's a former New York Times Pulitzer Prize winner, who has now compared Israel to ISIS, or ISIS to Israel, or vice versa, and it just unfortunately it's
reprehensible.
He's not alone.
To do
Yeah,
that.
but I can't wait to read it and see how it all turns out, folks. It's The Third Target by the great Joel Rosenberg. There it is on your screen. Out now, so get a hold of it, and I promise you won't be able to put it down. Joel,
thank you, Steve.
Great to see you. Thank you, and keep up the good work,
Thanks.
because we need your voice. All right, folks. So when we come back, the founder of Palestinian Media Watch, Itmar Marcus, wait till you see what the Palestinian government and their media is up to now. But remember, construction workers in Israel are the biggest impediment to peace. We're coming back.